Major Kira totally tells on Commander Sisko, and the Admiral she told totally tells on Major Kira right after that. And by the way, the best rat actor in the quadrant makes his debut. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc. Lofton.
Hello.
You remember that rat actor. Today, we're doing a deep dive on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 2, Past Prologue, written by Catherine Powers. Recognize that name as well. Directed by Weinrich Colby. This was January 10th, 1993. We have an incredibly special guest today. Garak himself is here, Mr. Andrew J. Robinson. Hello, Andy. How are you?
Hi, guys.
One and only.
So this is it. This is the big Garak intro.
You don't want any more of those.
No, I do want some more. Every time I see you as Garak, I want more. I can never get enough Garak, actually. You're so fantastic at playing this character. And just, it's almost musical to listen to you talk.
Thank you. I've been thinking about this stuff this week, about Garak and about this job, this past prologue job, which was my first, stab at the character, and how it came about, and what my expectations were, which were very simple. Having been an actor since Jesus walked the earth. I mean, I just figured it was going to be like every other gig, and I was disappointed that I didn't get Odo, but I had known Renee for a long time, and we'd worked together on stage and stuff like that, and I knew that they found the right actor. And so when they asked me to come back and do Garak, I thought, okay, this is fine. I'll do this, and I'll move on. It's changed my life, and I don't say this lightly. And I started thinking about, okay, you've said this before, so why has it changed your life? I mean, you didn't make that much money from it because you weren't a regular. I mean, you made a living, which was great. You were in prosthetics. Nobody, half the world, or 9/10 of the audience who had seen me in other things, Dirty Harry or Hellraiser or whatever, didn't know who the hell I was. And so only some people would say, that voice is familiar and stuff like that. So it's like, why did it change my life? But it did. It really did. And even today, I'm what, 30 years later? This is why we're talking about this, because this is it's 30 years since that episode.
Yeah.
And you and people like yourselves, are asking me to, come on a show and talk about it. It's amazing to me. Blows my mind.
Because it exists. It is real, and it exists. And whether it's been 30 years or not, it's still at our fingertips, and we can always access it and see it and get to it. And it means something to us because it feels like Deep Space Nine was a real place that all of us actually lived on, and the audience feels like that as well. And I can understand that by watching the show. But your character is so unique because you are this bridge into the Cardassian, a side of the Cardassians that we're not used to seeing. You're the most accessible, let's say, Cardassian that we get on the show.
Yeah, but I was also fortunate too, because there really wasn't, other than Mark, obviously, and David Warner in those two episodes in Next Generation where he's torturing Captain Picard, and the occasional secondary Cardassian. The Cardassian presence really wasn't established, and so and Mark was probably the image that was established of the militaristic, severe kind of race that they appeared to be, through his performance, his wonderful performance, by the way. But then Garak was a fully fleshed character. I mean, eventually that's what it became. Garak was multidimensional, and Garak had secrets. And Garak had that Cardassian thing, of course, because he was Cardassian. But it was like he also, the writers fell in love with him. Mm-hmm. And then the writers were the ones who like basically then fleshed out, the whole thing about Cardassia.
Well, the way you portrayed the character, Andy, felt as though the character were fully fleshed out from the second he walks on to the set and says hello to Julian Bashir. It didn't feel like this is just it's a Cardassian, it's Cardassian number 7. Like it felt like, and I actually wanted to ask you about that. Sounds like you're already answering it in the negative, but it felt as though this character was so heavily fleshed out already. And I wanted to know, was there like direction that they gave you? Did you get all of that just from the script and your mind?
Really, I got it from obviously the script, certainly. The makeup, which I've said before, once I got that makeup on and the wig and the costume and saw what I looked like, it was like nothing I had ever experienced as an actor. And so there I am, encased, and this is the paradox. This is I can't stress this enough because it is so interesting to me as an actor. The paradox is there I was encased in all of this stuff. And I really did, being a little claustrophobic, which everybody knows about, I've mentioned, and feeling really uncomfortable and not happy here. I also felt free. I was free. I could do whatever the hell I wanted. And I could think whatever I wanted. I could feel whatever I wanted. I could relate to anyone however I wanted. I mean, as long as I said the lines, memorize the lines and then screw up, takes and stuff like that. There was this freedom I had rarely had before. And this is the mystery to me. Why should this happen? And it happened from the get-go. Now, it helped that Sid was there. And and I had to find an opening action because that's, as an actor, I'm always looking, what is my action? What do I want here? What am I trying to accomplish? That's very important to me. And then the fact, the moment I saw Sid, and I've mentioned this before, people, this, that I decide, okay, what is a Cardassian? What is an alien? What's their sexuality? I mean, here's this beautiful young man here. I mean, is it I just want to recruit him as a source so I can get information so I can send it back to Cardassia? No, I also want to get into his pants because this is an incredible looking guy. And that was enormously helpful. I think that anchored the character right away. I think people got what Garak was doing when he puts his hand on Julian's shoulder.
Yes, and Julian looked very intimidated by you, and not just uncomfortable, not just confused. That was the extra layer I hadn't remembered, was the intimidation, was the alpha of that situation.
His reaction was beautiful because he felt it. He felt this thing. Holy Christ, this guy is.
Yeah, he had a couple awkward moments. There was a plant in his face, and he's kind of brushing it out of his face. He's feeling really awkward at this moment. Yeah. And you kind of approach him like a predator, like he's fresh.
Yes. That's right. That's right.
Stalking his prey.
Yeah, and so he doesn't know what to do at this point, and I really love that, the kind of looming that you do over it. And also the intent that you have with the character of precisely a destination that you're trying to get to. There's a goal, a mission to accomplish.
That's right.
And you always set it out with that. You always have something that you're accomplishing.
And in as non-threatening a way as possible. Always smiling. Always smiling, always courteous.
No, but that's what makes you even more scary, though.
Yeah.
The smile and the eloquence, and like, hey, it's no big deal. Yes. Just come on over here. It'll be just fine.
I recently, excuse me, I recently went into the studio, and for all you fans who are listening, tuning in today, Thank you, because if Simon and Schuster finally, got over their whatever their problem was, and they allowed me to put the book, on audio.
Amazing.
And so I went in a couple of weeks ago and spent a week putting the book down. And one of the things I found when I was writing the book was how I had in the book I had found that was the core of Garak. Always felt that he was smarter than anybody in the room. And so he could be generous. He could be, he wasn't going to confront anybody, and, unless somebody sort of like got rough with him or something like that, because he would outsmart them.
He was the smartest, though. He kind of was, though.
Yeah.
Because he knew what all the parts, the moving parts, he was aware of all of those parts.
That's right. That's right. And whether he was the smartest one in the room, that's beside the point. But that's how I played him.
Right.
Nobody was going to outsmart him, Of course they did. I mean, of course, because he is fallible like everyone else, and he fucked up like everyone else. But still, I mean, that was his going forward with a smile.
I love the scene with the Duras sisters when the Klingons come in there and they're trying to do the business with it. And they're like, well, so how many gold bars is it going to be? And you kind of go onto your little calculator, do one of these things, and you present it, and they get really upset about it. And your response is, well, hey, everything is negotiable. Like, that's
and then
just the offer.
The meme was born when you said, I can still or what do you say? Let's negotiate or haggle. Yeah. I think it was haggle. Let's haggle.
That's right. That's right. I forgot that. That's right. Oh my God.
Oh, so that meme is all over the internet now. Is Garrett going?
Oh yeah.
It's that T-shirt that I have that I love. Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, those scenes. And then the other thing I noticed too in watching this was, Garrick doesn't want to directly give you information. So he's not going to he doesn't want to snitch. No. You can't accuse him of being a snitch. Like, even this whole time he was trying to get Bashir in the dressing room so he could hear it for himself. I'm not going to snitch.
Among other reasons.
Well, yeah. You try this lingerie on too while you're in there. But there was a big part of that. It was just like he had a way of operating so that he felt his conscience was clear too. Like, he's still, he's giving you the information you want, but you have to hear it yourself. I'm not going to say it to you. You stay in there and you'll listen to it. But I'm going to orchestrate it so that you're able to do it. And I think that's the clever kind of genius behind the way he manipulates.
But it's the writers, because as a writer, you get into these characters, you're writing it and you're trying to visualize and you're trying to put yourself into that place. And you could see the writers just loved getting into Garrick's psyche, and getting into that shit, with him. And, and I tried talking to them about that, but they're not actors. The way I talk about it is not the way a writer talks about it, but it's because they were so engaged with it. That's why, I really do believe, as much as I would have loved to have been a regular, it's good that I wasn't, because, that just kept the mystery going. Mm-hmm. So that when he did show up, he's showing up, and there's what's the reason? Why is he here now?
Yeah, but this is the first episode, right? I mean, the second episode.
Yeah, the first for Garrick. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But
this is the first right after the pilot, though, right?
Yes.
This past prologue was the first episode after the pilot. So literally, as soon as the pilot is done, and they've set this precedence for Sisko and how he's going to end up on Deep Space Nine, they get right into your character.
First scene.
You're the first thing that introduces us into this station, really, and gives us an insight of what's, hey, I got a clothing shop over there you might want to check out.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I didn't think, because I didn't appear in another episode in that first season after that. So I thought, well, that's it. That's it. And then until the second season, they came back.
Did they tell you that you were going to be recurring? They didn't tell you any, you had no idea at all?
Never, not a word.
Wow.
And the thing is that you're used to that. You do a series, and I've been doing series since when I first came to California and did, I think, The Rookies was either The Rookies or the last season of Gunsmoke. I can't remember because I did 2 shows in a row. There's a show, you're the guest actor and you come in, and that's been the way it was always.
Yeah, that's my experience as well. Yeah, my experience as well. Like, you get brought in, you don't get told when you're coming back. They don't say, hey, next season 2, episode 6, we might need you again. You don't know that's going to.
I was just hoping there was like a little wink or something like, hey, you did a great job. Maybe we'll call you. And you say, oh, I think I'm coming back.
That's the funny thing, Ryan. I mean, even if you did a great job, I mean, nobody ever said anything like that. Thank you. They're very gracious. And, the only thing you hope is that the check cleared the bank. That's that was the important thing. Once the check cleared the bank, then that's fine. Sayonara, goodbye.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's true.
Did you get any inclination in that first episode, in that first scene, maybe from Sid or just yourself? Did you think, I think I'm nailing this? Was there any where you felt really confident with it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That and that's, I'm glad you asked that, Ron, because as an actor, you do a job, and it's a job. It's always a job, and you try to do the best you can. Then there are those few things that sort of like you start doing it and you realize, holy shit, this is different. Something's happening here. That happened with me with Liberace or with Hellraiser, especially when I was playing the evil brother. And certainly with Dirty Harry. And the thing is, it was kind of diabolical with Dirty Harry because that was my first film. And I thought all filmmaking, film acting that was my first film as an actor, that it was going to be like that. And I very quickly found out that no, it isn't. It's a handful of things. And so when I was doing that first scene and the stuff with Sid, I was having so much fun. I loved it and it was all working, So I'm not surprised that, I'm not surprised that I was called back. I think even I thought that I was going to come back myself because I thought this is too good. I mean, we were having a good time here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was that the scene that you auditioned with? This scene with Bashir?
Yeah, it was. It had to have been. It had to have been because especially since they were looking, I don't know if you remember, but they were looking for somebody to, for a storyline for Sid, because everyone had a storyline. The Siskos had their family, and of course, the captain is the captain, but Sid was kind of left out in the cold there. He would appear and somebody got a boo-boo or something. And so they really wanted to engage him somehow. And the idea was, okay, what if this guy's a spy? And I think that was always, on the drawing board, that he would get involved with an older guy who was a spy.
That's amazing. Yeah. Love it.
And you said that, but they did make you audition for this, Garrick, even though they were considering you for Odo. They didn't just say, well, you didn't do the Odo thing.
And it pissed me off. It fucking pissed me off.
Yeah.
I went back, I think 3 times. I know I went back 3 times because they're very careful about Ron Surma and the producers and everybody. They're very careful about the way they, I don't know how many auditions you had when you.
About 4. Yeah, about 4 auditions.
So I mean, it's like it was at least 3 with me. And then when they called back and said, could you come back in and read for this character? And the story is, and it's a true story, I've told this before, I didn't want to go back. I said, no, screw this. You saw me, you know what I can do. And Irene said, no, you have to go back because we have to pay bills,
Andy, do you think that may have been a little bit of where that freedom came from, where you just that kind of like screw it kind of attitude of like, these guys know, like, did you go in maybe that maybe that opened up that freedom to just say, you know what, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to go nuts.
It was Garak. It was purely Garak. I mean, it was getting into that costume, seeing the image of myself, an image I had never seen before that was fabulous, and the script and the relationship with Sid. That was the thing. I mean, I put my ego aside, I mean, we all talk big, when as actors. Yeah, fuck, I'm better. The role is not good enough. Why did that guy get that role? I'm better than he, we all go through that bullshit, but in the end, all we want to do is play. We just want to play. And we just pray that well, if we get paid for the play, that's pretty great. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that we get a chance to play. Yeah. And then when I got, I found Garak was playable.
Yeah, you definitely played with this character. You gave us so much in the range. And the whole coy, like the whole, you don't know what he's gonna do or think. There was always an element of, is this guy gonna turn? Is he gonna flip? Is he, is he gonna walk me into a trap? There was such an element of, I don't know exactly. I'm not 100% about this guy.
I kept on thinking, especially when it got into the second and especially the third season, I started thinking, okay, all right, I'm going to get a script and it's going to be, that's it, baby.
The death script.
somebody at Garak's pissed off is going to come back on the station and take him out. The fact that that the character lasted through the entire series was mind blowing, and especially those last 3 seasons. But it was that first past prologue that laid it out. That was the foundation of everything. Found the character in the first moment. Didn't have to fake my way through it. It was there, and that's a gift. It's a gift.
Well, you know what else is a gift, Andy, was you showing up today. We gotta close this segment out, but Cirroc, I think you had one more thing you were just about to say before I jumped on you there.
It was going to be in reference to the director who I was
Rick.
Just sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was it Rick? Okay.
Rick,
so had you worked with Rick before? Or?
No, never had. But you see the thing about Rick is a European. Yeah. And there's a sophistication that Rick always had that I appreciated. There was an understanding that he had. And I found him. My memory of Rick, and it's a very strong memory too, because I liked him a lot, is that he appreciated Garak's intelligence, and Garak's irony, and Europeans, the Europeans I've worked with tend to be very good with irony. They have that sense of the world, which is, it's a fucked up world, but we have to function.
Right. Right. So he allowed you he really was okay with you just getting deep into it. He's like, go.
Absolutely. That's right. I think he got a kick out of that first moment. I expected, I think that probably I expected when I put my hand, hello there, whatever I said. Yeah. I bet, okay, cut. Now let's let's take it again. Back off on that a little bit.
Right.
Not the Euros. They're like close up.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. They like it. It was we're so glad that you did accept the role, that you did take on the challenge, and that you gave us Garak, which is one of the phenomenal characters of all time in television.
Oh, thanks, man. I love you guys. I really do.
We love you too.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure hanging out with you. Always. You're not going on the cruise, are you? Are you?
I will be on the cruise. Yes.
Yes. All right.
Very good. Hang out.
That's right. Good. All
now
right.
it's a party.
Good news.
Yes.
All right. Sorry, Ryan. My suitcase.
We're trying to get him. He's still up in the air.
We still just gotta haggle.
All right. Take care, guys.
Stick around for just a second here, Andy. Everybody at home, we'll be right back on the 7th rule. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc. Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Melissa Longo has popped in because, hey, she felt like it.
Hey.
Yeah.
And
I can't read times, so
we are going to have even more fun than we were going to. So thanks for playing with us, Melissa. Here are the trivioids of the week, of the month, I should say, of this crazy Deep Space Nine deep dive. Here it comes. The best rat actor in the quadrant makes his debut. Bashir offers Garrick some Tarkalian tea. Tanalos requests a political asylum. Sisko wants a few docking regulations to keep Gul Dunar outside for a while. Did you recognize Gul Dunar?
Mm-hmm.
Major Kira tells on Commander Sisko, and the Admiral totally tells on Major Kira after that. Klingons do not surrender their weapons. The term politician is an insult to Major Kira, which was great. Odo can't imitate humanoid pretense, and the Joranian ostrich hides by sticking its head underwater sometimes until it drowns. Now, that was confusing for me. So Gul Dunar was our good friend Vaughn Armstrong.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was great.
Like, that's fun. But I had watched the Seventh Rules review of this episode with Aaron, and he spoiled the news in that review. And then when I was watching it last night, I was like, oh yeah, that totally is fun.
Yeah, I had to pause and go to IMDb. I was like, let me make sure. Pause, check. I was like, that's our guy, Gul Dunar.
Couldn't unsee him after.
Wasn't that one of the James Bond movies, Gul Dunar?
I think it's.
Oh gosh.
Isn't it
gosh.
Finger?
No, it's
wow.
Never mind.
Oh,
moving on.
Yeah.
So sorry. It's not worth it.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I ruined
sorry,
it
everybody.
worse.
I was watching it. Goldfinger.
Goldfinger. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that as James Bond episode, movie, the Goldfinger movie. But no, I thought Dinar and Damar was so close. I actually had to rewind it a few times. I was like, did they say Damar? Is this a different Damar? And then I just realized, I guess everybody in Cardassia has a very similar name. Dinar, Damar, Jafar,
Jafar.
Jafar.
I did want to point out also, Cirroc, written by Catherine Powers. As soon as I typed that in, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We know that name, right? She co-wrote Code of Honor. And then when I saw that, it made me rethink what I just watched. And I was like,
yeah,
did I recognize a writing style, or did she just learn from her mistakes 5 years later? And this was a good episode.
Right. This was a way different episode than Code of Honor.
Yeah. I don't know. I that's the other thing I noticed when I was watching this episode was how serious the characters are.
Exactly.
When I was comparing it to the beginning and the early seasons of Next Generation was a lot more loose and kind of jokey, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And this seems way more, the tone is serious, and there's a lot of drama in this.
This is like
show.
Word for word what I wanted to bring up. When I watched this, I thought the same thing. I was like, this is what I'm noticing today that I hadn't noticed before. The stark contrast, in early 1993 versus 1987, Deep Space Nine versus Next Generation. Next Generation, that second episode was The Naked Now, where they're prancing around, they're humping each other, dudes playing with isolinear chips like they're building blocks. And this one isn't just a more serious situation all around. Like the story itself is way more serious, but there's also just so much more drama. And darkness, and it's just dark. It's heavy. It's dramatic. Stark difference.
Yeah. Well, but it also feels like we are definitely taking a plunge into this universe, this world. It for me, it was a wonderful world building as a whole. We get to learn more about the Bajorans. We get to learn more about, the political struggles that they're going through, having just being liberated. And I love that stuff. I love diving deep into seeing what makes people tick. And we got to see more of the Cardassians and their, cultural personalities. And I love that stuff. I love that it dives deep like that.
The other thing I noticed was in the early beginnings of Next Generation, in the first few episodes, there is no real opposition to Picard. Picard is the boss. Everybody recognizes that, and he doesn't really run into conflict who questions his authority outside of the alien guests of the show, like Q comes on and might question his authority, and other aliens will come on. But as far as the crew is concerned, nobody challenges his authority. But in this episode of Past Prologue, I realized how much Kira challenges Sisko. Like, she's not on the team. She's not with she's not with his plan. She's not with Federation.
It's like a necessary evil to her. She's like, for now. And that's why she took politician to be such an insult. When the guy said, "Oh, I didn't realize you'd become such a politician," she's just like, "Watch your mouth, buddy."
Right. And she challenges Sisko in a lot of ways because there is a distrust there early on in this. Right. Sisko doesn't really trust her. Right. He's like, they're like, "Should we tell her?" And he's like, "Well, no, let's not tell her, and let's watch what she does and keep an eye on her." And there's a distrust, and even in her end, there's a distrust. She doesn't trust Sisko and doesn't trust the Federation, and so there's this mutual distrust for each other, and there's a challenge to his governing style, or his, how his leadership. How he decides to lead. So I think there's a lot of conflict there. And right off the bat, I realized that the DS9 writers and the producers have a very good understanding of how to escalate the drama in scenes. There was there's not too much going and getting along. And, oh, yeah, everybody's fine. We're all kumbaya. It's always, I say yes, you say no. You say black, I say white. There's always a conflict in these scenes. And I think that's what makes it so interesting as far as drama is concerned.
That is rule number one in screenwriting. Every scene must have all conflict. And anybody that tells you, "Oh, yeah, but not this," they're wrong. There's always, sometimes you just have to dig a little bit deeper, even if they're like, "Oh, it's just two people, flirting with themselves. There's no conflict." Nope. One of them is flirting because they want something else, or one of them is not really sure if they want it, or there's something going on. There's always that conflict, and Deep Space Nine nails that. Like every scene, there's a push and a pull, and
and
the
there's
scenes
always a why. There is a push and a pull. There's always a backstory from why Kira is pushing up against Sisko, and why Sisko is pushing back, and why he's so
why
patient
Garrick is
with her.
pushing up against Bashir.
right. But there's always a reason. It's not just thrown in there for the sake of conflict. There's a
purpose. There's a purpose. There's a purpose behind it.
Yes, there's a purpose.
Like even when Gold Dinar comes on the ship, and he says something to the effect of, Sisko says, this is how it's going to be. I'm going to give him, what is the word? not immunity, but
asylum.
Amnesty.
Asylum. Yeah.
Yes. Asylum.
Right. When they're arguing the terms of the asylum and whether you should grant it or not, there's conflict there, right? And the Cardassian is saying, I didn't threaten the station. There's a conflict there. I didn't threaten the station. I'm coming for this fugitive. And there's always this conflict going on. Even the scene I felt like when Kira comes into Odo's office, and it's really great to watch the Kira Odo stuff scenes now, because I know where it's going to end. Yeah. So it's like the beginning of a really beautiful relationship where you get to see just how they talk to each other when they're not together. And there's a respect there, but there's also, a curiosity. And then Odo did that one move where I really loved, where he's like, Odo to Sisko, there's somebody in my office who wants to talk to you. And I love the way he did that. She's like, oh, I guess this is what we're doing now. And he's like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, and I noticed a moment like that when he put his pad down on the console. Mm-hmm. He made a decision. He's like, okay, I'm not going to look at this anymore because she needs to talk. And then he deliberately puts the pad on the console. And I was like, wow, what a great moment that was. Because you could see the choice and the moment that he decided to quit working and listen to his friend. Great moment by Renee.
And she was so wholesome and really battling herself in that moment when she talks to him, because she's like, she's wrestling between these two allegiances that she has, right? This old way of that she used to be as opposed to who she is now, and the decisions she's trying to wrestle with. Is she doing the right thing? And it's really that internal conflict inside of her is something that she really communicates well on screen. I felt it.
Mm-hmm. We're going to hop into our next segment in just a minute. And when we do, I'd like to spend that segment talking about, and this is just what I'd like, you guys don't have to, whether that was an actual rat actor or whether that was Odo, Rene Aubergenois playing Odo, playing a rat. Because I think that's, he was really the makeup. If you look closely, I think had some of his.
It is funny that you said that, because there was a line in this episode where he says, to Kira, he says, just like I have difficulty making the ridges in my nose,
and then he went, and I'm thinking like that, wiggled his rat nose to throw us off a little bit.
Yeah.
Like Bewitched.
Yeah, like Bewitched, right? Yeah. But I was thinking you could turn yourself into a rat, but you can't put some wrinkles in your nose. That doesn't seem that hard.
Well, we're going to really dig deep into this. And so everybody stay tuned. We're not just going to let this die. We're going to keep hammering it home on this. Look how scared Malissa looks. She's like, but there's so many better things to talk about.
No, because I'm thinking, you got the wheels turning.
The rat wheel on the seventh rule. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule Rat Talk. It's been great to have you here. I guess we can move on from the rat talk. I guess we can.
Yeah, I think so.
But I do have a kind of a response to why can't he do noses, and he can do a rat, but he can't do noses. But maybe it's like a genetic thing where some people can whistle and some people can't, and then some people can roll their tongues. And some people can't because of genetics. Maybe he could turn into a rat, but he can't do noses.
It's like this is part of my. This is the part where I don't shift that well.
Bajoran nose, right there. You're giving the Bajoran nose wrinkle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can he do a rat with a Bajoran nose? That's the question.
I want to see a Bajoran with a rat nose. We've seen a couple.
I want to see the rat with an Odo face.
That's nightmarish.
That's the winner. That's the winner right there.
Can you imagine?
Oh,
a rat just walks up to you with an Odo face and it like harumps at you. That sounds like a nightmare that I'm looking forward to having.
You know who else really stood out to me? I thought did a good job, and I don't know if we ever gave them credit, but I thought the Duras sisters were really good in their performance as well. They came in, they look like some Klingon badass women that were just not playing.
Well, see, they're introduced in the next generation, so you will be seeing more of them. And so that's why their characters felt like crazy fleshed out. Like you're like, how did they just pop up? They know who they are. They got a reputation. It's because they're already pretty fleshed out. They're even in the 7th movie, Star Trek Generations, if I remember correctly.
What?
Yeah. So they're pretty amazing. And I agree with you.
In that movie?
No spoilers, but yeah.
No,
but they have like this.
Doing the movie?
They have this great moment where they're like, oh, human females are hideous or whatever. It's just people know.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah, we don't have the same kind of awesome outfits they have.
I really like the writers for adding the scene and the subsequent scene where Kira calls the Admiral on Sisko and tries to report him to the authority or his superior.
I was surprised
I really like
that she just turned right around and told on her.
I was like, whoa. I was like, we're not building trust here, are we?
No, not at all.
And then I really loved Sisko's scene with her, his comeback scene when he says, if you go over my head again, I'll have yours on a platter. Mm-hmm. I just love the way he said it really kind of like half joking, but half very serious. Mm-hmm. And I liked the delivery as well. It wasn't a brutal, condemnation of her. It was like, you do realize I do know what you're up to. The word got back to me. I know what you did. And if you do it again, we're going to have some problems. I love the way he did that.
And it was a good lesson for Kira too, I think, because it demonstrated that he's still willing to work with her, even though he knows that she went behind his back, tried to go over his head and tried to get him in trouble, essentially. But he was still fair enough and reasonable enough to work with her and hear her requests and even try to help, because that's what he's there for. He's there to help Bajor. And it's a good lesson for Kira to show that, maybe you should trust me a little bit too, as Sisko saying that to her.
Also, maybe it tells her what she's dealing with Starfleet. Like, she's used to dealing with terrorist cells and spying and all. There's, it's a different modus operandi, whereas with Starfleet, and she goes and wisps, pss, 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 and Starfleet's like, okay, well, that's not how this thing works around here.
Mm-hmm. Right. This chain of command. We've got a chain of command here, and this is how it's going to go down. You can't override that chain of command by thinking you're going to go to somebody around people or above them. Mm-hmm. And it also kind of says snitches get stitches around here. So don't be snitching. But I did like
she's
also
not working with Cardassians anymore.
Yeah, she's not. But I like the scene where Sisko kind of walks up on her and he says to her, remember when she's kind of looking on the computer to download some information, to find a runabout that she can get access to? And Sisko kind of comes up on her shoulder while she's doing that. And she does what all of us do when we get caught doing something, like, oh, wait, nothing. I just want to, she turns the thing off and is like, no, I wasn't doing anything. And Sisko's looking at her, and I really like the measured approach that he takes with her, because he's like, he looks at her and he's like, he doesn't realize what she was looking at on the screen, but he's still asking her about something else. He says, so those Bajorans just arrived on the station. What do you think about them? And I just like the question when he said, what do you think about them? Because he was gauging to see her allegiance, essentially, like, how hard she was going to defend them or vouch for them, what her read on them was. And I thought that was just great writing, What do you think about them? Let me gauge your reaction to see where you stand in this. Are you sabotaging us? Are you going to choose our side or theirs? Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a nice, subtle way to kind of probe.
Yeah. Aren't all of the runabouts rivers? We've got the Ganges, the Yangtze. Mm-hmm. Before that, last week we had the Rio Grande, right? And at first I thought they were all going to be like Western themes with the Rio Grande, because this was supposed to be the Star Trek Western kind of is where it came from, but apparently it's just all river themes. I don't remember if there are any others later on, but that was just a fun thing that I noticed probably for the 5th time and forgot for the 4th time.
Yeah.
I think I did remember some rivers later on. I think so.
All the runabouts, yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of runabouts. The other thing I thought was good was there was a moment when Kira is going down the turbo lift in Ops and she's trying to look straight ahead.
Yeah.
But she gives Sisko a look and then kind of move. Did you see that moment?
Yes,
Malissa?
Yes. I know exactly the moment because I made a note of it too. It was when Bashir was telling Sisko that Garak wants him to go buy a new suit and Kira needs to go do what she needs to do, but she wants to hear what Bashir's telling Sisko and her wanting to be in that conversation. It was so good. It was a great moment. I remember it.
There's just an interesting dynamic on this show in these first couple episodes where there's distrust. There's a little bit of like, I don't want to say childishness, but there's just a lot of human nature kind of things of like rumors and telling on people and and spying on there's just a lot of things where people are kind of feeling each other out and they're kind of trying to find their way. Not with Captain Sisko or Commander Sisko. He seems to be certain of where he's heading. But the rest of them are kind of, even like Bashir at first is like nervous and he's rumoring around. He's like, hey, I think there's a spy and he's talking to me. What should we do? And they're like, go find out what he wants. He's like, yeah, but shouldn't we go arrest him or he's a spy? We don't know for sure he's a spy. Calm down. Everybody's still very human, including the aliens.
Well, he's definitely the youngster in the senior staff, amongst the senior staff. He's definitely the one who's, what's the word? Wet behind the ears. Is that the word? Term?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a long word.
It's German. Germans combine phrases into one long word. That's a weird thing they do.
That's he's definitely the one who's got that innocence still.
And he's so nervous when Garak walks up on him. He's like, there's like the nervousness. I'm like, dude, calm down. He went through training, man.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that too. He was like, whoa, you're so close.
Yeah, he was. But yeah, I did all the, like, watching it, I did feel like Deep Space Nine starts off on a tone that is, a lot more serious than how Next Generation starts off. It starts off on a very serious, darker, everything. There's a bunch of little things happening too. So it's, usually in Next Generation you had that one storyline, but there weren't that many tiny little miniature stories in the story. And this had a bunch of little stories inside of the basic story.
And also
that's why,
and also everything with like original series and Next Generation, it's cleaner, it's brighter, it's more colorful, not just in what we're seeing, but what we're feeling. Like, the story is also cleaner, is also brighter, whereas Deep Space Nine is darker, it's grittier, it's dirtier. That the characters aren't these clean, fine, upstanding Starfleet citizens. Some are, some aren't. Whereas Next Generation, original series, the shows preceding Deep Space Nine was just, here are the good guys,
right?
And we're going to go venture out and run into some bad guys. With Deep Space Nine, it's like, we're all kind of shades of gray around here.
Right,
Who knows
right.
who's a good guy or bad guy?
In
really.
the gray. To me, that honestly, and that's not to knock any other show, but to me, that's more true to real life, is existing in the gray, because there are no black and white answers to anything. And there aren't usually easy choices in life. This is right and this is wrong. End of story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with the absolutes. I also noticed that when Sisko and O'Brien were in the runabout chasing down Kira, there was a moment when they were like, well, we have to shoot him. We have to shoot him. We have to shoot him out of the sky. Otherwise, everybody else is going to suffer. Mm-hmm. And I remember when Sisko says, prepare the photons, or whatever it was that he says to O'Brien. O'Brien is like, sure, let's blow this girl. Let's blow him out of the water.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
he's like, I don't like her attitude. Let's do it. Let's do it.
He doesn't even give Sisko the look like, you sure you want to do this? Mm-hmm. There's nothing like that. He's like, you got it. You ready now, or should I wait? Mm-hmm.
I want to see the cut scene where after the bomb blows up, Sisko says, stand down. And Chief's like, are you sure? I mean, I could still
we can end this down. Now.
We could, I'm just saying that we're still armed. Everybody's on the other side of the wormhole. Nobody would know. We could just, just do it.
It looked like he was eager to do it. Like he was tired of Kira's attitude too, I think.
Yeah.
I was so glad to see O'Brien in this too. I'm glad that we get so many years of O'Brien. From the very first episode of TNG to, the last episode of Deep Space Nine.
To the fourth episode of Voyager, to the third season of Enterprise, to Lower Decks when they put up the statue of him. I mean, like, we just...
Don't they guys have another engineer? I mean, Jesus, somebody train somebody.
Like, we have a shortage of engineers going on here.
Plenty of captains, no engineers. So.
All right. Actually, we got a lot of engineers and the people that we have to thank right now. And those people are everybody in the comments below. Guess which of these names are engineers. Those names are Homer Frizzell, not an engineer, Dr. Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan, Titus Mohler, Darlena Marie, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Tierney C. Dieckmann, Anna Post, Rex A. Wood, Anil O. Polat. I'm just kidding. I don't know if he's an engineer. Joe Balsarotti, Mike Gu, Dequeue, Neal Akasaka, Justine Norton-Kertson, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, live from Tokyo, Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Jed Thompson, Amy Renee Haynes, Sean Mouch, Marcia Classic Schreier, Randy Frank, Lambda Quadrant's own, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner. Oh, actually, we have one more person to thank. Let me pull up this person's name right now. It is Jason Okun. Special thanks to him. All right, everybody, we will see you on the other side. We've got the free-for-all next. We're going to be talking about things that we've missed until just now, new things that we've discovered about this episode, as well as bringing our good friend, Mr. Aaron Eisenberg, into this conversation by bringing up some of the things he mentioned a few years ago. Malissa is pointing at something. Here it is.
Family.
There's our guy.
Oh, that's Aaron. Aaron.
Nog.
Yeah.
That's Quark and Nog and Ram and Lita and Ishka and Zek. Woo!
Beautiful.
I love this shirt.
All right, everybody, stick around. We'll be right back on the 7th rule. All right.
Oh, God.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th rule. Cirroc Lofton is telling animal jokes, and you're missing out. But it's good stuff. So, what we're going to do, rats. Is we're going to talk about this episode a little bit more. It's a bit of a deep dive, but we're also going to be covering our previous review of this when Aaron was with us. This was almost 4 years ago. We were talking about Deep Space Nine, and we want to kind of compare and contrast, what we feel about it now versus how we felt about it back then. We've got our good buddy Jed Thompson here. We have our very good buddy Jason Okun here. How do you pronounce that last name, sir?
Okun.
Jason Okun is here. My live in Tokyo is also here. And the evil one, Goldu Scott Jensen. All right. So, first things first, Malissa has chosen some fun items for us to enjoy together as a group. And we will pull them up right now. So this is from about 3.5 years ago, and Aaron Eisenberg brings up a nice point. Check this out.
How they told the stories and how they started connecting characters and relationships. They didn't do it in exposition. They didn't do, Odo, this and this. Oh, Garrick, this is who I am, and this is my past. And then Bashir, when I was going to the academy, they didn't do any of that. And as a matter of fact, they just used the characters of who they are of themselves, their personalities, their idiosyncratic behavior, and within the context of this story of this Konma, am I saying that right?
Konma.
Is that right? This terrorist, if you will, is one person's rebel, is another person's terrorist. And within the crux of the story, they're connecting characters and relationships through action. And I think that's what I loved more than anything. How they did it, how the writers wrote that. I didn't feel.
Okay. So, what do you guys think of that? That's our guy, Aaron, always getting some good, deep, important stuff. And basically, he's telling us how great the Deep Space Nine writers are at show, don't tell. Right. And they're not. One thing I don't like is when a new character comes in, they're like, well, he's the smartest person in the academy. And it's like, okay. Yeah. Well, now I'd rather just show us that he's smart. But I don't know. What do you guys think of that?
I think, I like listening to Aaron speak. He is inspirational.
Even though he mispronounces things all the time. Well, he did mispronounce things all the time. Yes, it was very endearing to Aaron.
It was interesting to watch this episode and doing the concurrent, TNG watch through here and just see the complete difference in style and tone and of that writing and the storytelling, as he was just mentioning there, and the subtleties, of course, that a simple tailor may have. Of course, Andrew Robinson bringing him into, really fleshing out that character of Garrick, of course, specifically, but all the others just, you felt that like they were so well developed already. And this is the second episode. They left a lot unsaid right off the bat, just like you said, Ryan, right now. Don't show me, don't tell me. And you might have to wait a few episodes, you might have to wait a few years, but that was a big difference there.
Why did you choose this particular segment, Malissa? Because by the way, everybody, Malissa went and chose these segments for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I thought that Aaron had made his point so beautifully, whether he got his pronunciation right or not. The point was that the writers did dive into these characters immediately. They hit the ground running with everyone, and to me, world building is really important. It goes hand in hand with character development, and those two things combined drive a story. And I think Aaron hit the nail on the head. And showing and not telling is important to me when I watch something as well, because otherwise I start to roll my eyes and I get bored because you're telling me all of this stuff, and that's not interesting. It's not interesting. I want to see the drama. I want to see why Kira is butting heads with Sisko, and what makes her come at him the way that she does. And it's the history that she has fighting the Cardassians her entire life. I mean, she's a walking open wound, and there wouldn't be trust initially towards him or anybody who's coming in to essentially help them rebuild. So
yeah, I think he nails it too, because of the way the writers kind of dig into these scenes. One thing that the Star Trek does a good job of is not dumbing down things for their audience. They treat their audience like they're intelligent and will be able to understand things. And if you don't understand it, they expect their audience to do the homework and research whatever it is that they don't understand. And I think that's one of the things that makes this show so good, is that they're not dumbing it down. They're keeping it, real in the sense of how people really interact with each other. I think there was a scene where Garrick said to the Duras sisters, he said, "Well, tell me what your plan is." And they're like, "I'm not going to tell you. Like, why would I tell you what my plan is?" And just the small little interactions like that, I enjoy the realness of it. What that's what a normal person is going to say. Hey, tell me what's yours in your secret sauce. It's a secret. So I feel like they do that a lot about when they create this drama on the show. There's a lot of butting heads, and there's a lot of real, honest responses to people. Odo was really engaged with Kira in that scene that they had in his office. There was he was giving natural responses to probe and to kind of investigate. And like you said, Melissa, when he put the tablet down, and he's like, "Okay, well, let's listen to this and see what's going on here, because something is this is not just a standard little chit chat meeting." And that that's them showing us, right. That's another kind of a show.
Well, and even him probing her before she leaves the office, and I did not mean it that way, Ryan. Establishes
I'm just setting up the next shot.
Establishes a relationship between Kira and Odo. It shows us that they already have a relationship before this scene, that they already know each other pretty well, and he can tell when something is bothering her, and when she's upset, and when she needs to talk about something, and that's great. I hope all of my friends are able to do that too, when I need them to know when something's up and needs to talk. So
right. So
yeah, and there was also one more thing that I think showed that, and it was when Odo says, he starts to complain about the way the Federation operates. And he was like, boy, there's one good thing about the old guys. At least, we didn't have to do surveys and check and, check in with anybody.
It was a lot simpler under the Cardassians.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
Simpler.
No Cardassians.
He says with a gleam in his eye.
Yes.
Mm.
Giving us backstory too, like filling in the backstory as they're going forward. So it's really good.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's pull up this next clip here. But yeah, I'd noticed that too, that Odo seemed a little fond of the occupation there. We're like,
So we can't just kill him? Like, no, we can't just kill him. All right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you have it your way, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so here it is. Take it away, Mr. Eisenberg.
Bashir was all wide-eyed. Oh, I think he's a spy for the Cardassians. And Sisko didn't tell him, he goes, no, I don't think so. He let him still just do his thing because Bashir was giving information that was really over Bashir's head, right? And then Sisko's like, go, because he's thinking there's something more. And Garak was subtly connecting the Federation to the Klingons without saying he was doing that. I have a suit for you today. Be there at 2250.
Oh, that was brilliant.
That's excellent writing because it's giving the crumbs but not putting them all in one place. Everybody was part of the solution. Everybody was involved in finding what the truth was, and Garak was instrumental from this first episode. And
boy, that's it's kind of weird watching myself, Cirroc. Is it weird watching yourself too? That's just kind of weird.
It is.
Watch 7 years of himself.
Yeah.
Like, what are these guys doing here?
But and actually, more than that, is just this to see Aaron's passion and excitement and the way just to hear his voice again makes me feel good.
Absolutely.
His insight, his passion, like he speaks from his heart when he talks, and I love that about him.
Yeah, and one of the biggest reasons I picked this clip, aside from Aaron's passion in it, I love that how excited he was about this show and watching it and the things that he got it from it. But the thing that stood out to me the most was when he said everyone was part of the solution. And I think that Deep Space Nine excels in this area, making everyone part of the solution to finding the truth of the story. It's not relying on one hero, because they're all instrumental in getting these puzzle pieces and putting them together to see the bigger picture. And that's why I chose that clip, because I think that's important. If everyone has a part in this to play, to to make a contribution to a greater whole. That makes sense.
Yeah. Very much.
Well, yeah, everybody does, and that's how they weave in this ensemble so well together. Everybody's having a role to play. Odo is investigating. Kira has to make a decision. Sisko is overseeing. Bashir is kind of like, I don't know, but I guess I'll see. So yeah, I do like the way that they blend everybody and don't put everything on just one person to be the save the day character.
Yeah, there's not one savior. There's everyone has a part.
And a quick shout out to Sisko for dealing with every single personality known to humankind in one episode here, and just showing excellent managerial skills.
Really, yeah.
And that's writing right there. That up the food chain there. That's the writing and all that, like we just were talking about.
Well, Jed, along those lines, do you think it would make a better commander to say, hey, I'm the leader, I'm in charge. This is the way things are, and they need to adjust to that person? Or do you think it makes a better commander to adjust the way you are addressing them, or adjust your relationship based on that person?
It's a great question that is applicable anywhere at any time. And, Sisko does such a great job there of understanding, the exuberance that's coming off of Bashir. I mean, he's just so pure and innocent, and we know how intelligent he is, and he's just bouncing off the consoles here while O'Brien is, up to his elbows in isolinear chips trying to keep the place, together. And Dax is over there just throwing out one-liners like, and what makes you think that he's interested in you? Like, and, that sort of thing. And so he's dealing with, as a manager there, he's if you do the it's my way or the highway, then it's just such a bad time for everybody. And you see those one-sided or two-sided, characters. You get the three-dimensional characters that are, or people. It's not get too real here, but where they're addressing everybody based on their personalities, and talking to Kira and being like, I'm going to serve your head up on a platter next time you go above me, and because she needs that, and going to Bashir and just going, yep. Why don't you get a suit later, and just, this just reacting and conversing with each person as they need it. And that's applicable anywhere.
All right. Well, let's hop onto this next one. Great stuff, Jed. Thank you. This is the next clip that Malissa prepared for us.
One of the things I like that I wonder what was going through, like what was Renee's thought process, his subtext in the scene where he goes to Sisko, do you want me to tell Kira? And Sisko goes, no, not yet. And I love that he says no, not yet, because he's playing a game. He's moving pieces, you know?
And I like that too.
He wants to see how this plays out. He doesn't want to rush to judgment. He wants to, because what he really wants to do is, can I trust Kira? If she's going to be my number one, I've got to be able to trust her.
This is the opportunity to test to see if I can trust her.
Exactly.
I'm going to find out one way or another.
Yeah. And you guys pointed that out earlier too, with that same, it's interesting how some of the reviews from the last time overlapped with some of the reviews this time.
I love that.
And that one, that one stood out. And that is great writing too, is seeing not only if Sisko can trust Kira, but if Sisko can trust Odo. With not betraying his, not betraying Sisko's trust by telling her anyway. So great writing all around, because each person is this chessboard piece, which is great.
I think there's nothing cooler for me than incorporating Aaron into our conversations right now. I think this is just my favorite thing. I'm loving it so much. He's still teaching us things. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot you said that. That's good stuff. What do we? Oh, there's his eye.
Yeah,
my pointing to the eye. Okay,
DS9 with those three guys.
We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to hop over on the other segment, and we're going to all talk about what we noticed this time, as opposed to all the other 40 times that we watched this episode, if anything. So everybody stick around. We'll be right back on the Seventh Rule with Aaron Eisenberg. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Deep Space Nine Deep Dive. Number 2, Passes Prologue. So we've seen this episode countless times, except for Cirroc. He's seen it once and now twice, I think. So let's kind of talk about what we noticed this recent time. If you haven't seen it very recently, just the last time you've seen it. What do you think, Scott? Did you find anything new that you hadn't seen before, or something that you appreciated more this time?
I found a couple things. Actually, the little detail that I hadn't picked up any time watching this, which was probably about the 40th or whatever time, is how we had and I'm going to do the same thing. I actually wrote it out phonetically. Konma, is that right? Konma? Yeah, I phonetically wrote it out. It's kind of like the Bajoran resistance version of Section 31 and the Obsidian Order, and that group that's ready to go just too far for the greater good. And I thought that it linked in with the story really well of Kira, with the balance between growing up and selling out. I've spent my entire life in the punk scene, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, if you go and do stuff for money and stuff like that, it's selling out." And the importance of being true to yourself as growing up and not selling out, and it was extremely important. And I love how that was actually even said to her. How it was said, "You've got to be true to yourself over these people that are still, fighting a war that's." Probably it's ended in reality. I don't know if it's ended in their minds because they grew up. I mean, because Kira and all of her contemporaries never knew life outside of an occupation. It was 50, 60 years long. So she never knew anything but that. So yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And I love the first appearances or the reappearances of the Ross sisters, and then the greatest rat actor in the world.
Yeah.
That was also.
Yeah.
I had to pause the TV because that memory popped in my head when I saw that rat, and I was like, "Why, he's a good actor?" And I just fell out. It was absolutely great.
Well, Scott, do you think that Major Kira is selling out or growing up here?
I think she is 100% growing up, and if not for people like her from the Resistance, once again giving an example of how to move forward, because she was doing that while she was throwing bombs into buildings and stuff like that, and she's doing it now. It's just she's willing to evolve and she's willing to adjust, and I think that's only a precursor to what we see of her in the future and the path that she does take, because Bajor needs to evolve, just like eventually Cardassian needs to evolve, and you need to change in order to survive. That's one of the oldest, they've said in canon, one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy is Bajor. So who knows what they've been through? What's their ancient history? Their ancient history. Have they seen something like the occupation before? And they have evolved and survived and still been one of the most spiritual and artistic, groups of people in the galaxy. So I think definitely Kira is. I mean, I definitely wouldn't tell her to her face she's a sellout, or even say that we're anyone near her. Especially season 1, Kira.
Smart man.
Yeah.
Smart man.
Like, she is waiting to elbow somebody in the face at any moment, and I love every minute of this. It is absolutely great. Definitely.
Your thoughts. What did you catch this time that you hadn't noticed before? Any new thoughts on it?
A couple things. After following on from a comment that I made on a review of a TNG episode recently, and following on from what Lisa said and what Jed said, I think that the best review of this is what Ira said when he said, in past Prologue, there's a moral dilemma for Major Kira where she's going to confront her loyalty to her past life and what her new life is going to be. He says it's really about her. It's illuminating our new characters. And that presence of a manager, or that presence of a leader, military leader, incorporating people so that they own every aspect of things that happen on that station. I thought that these writers were just blessed with it beyond incredible foresight in how to develop a story, and I really, really like that. I think, and then I'm awed, I'm blown away that Aaron was able to so clearly illuminate that for us so early on, and I just incredible stuff. The character development was key. The other thing that this aired about the time that I moved to Shanghai, and I was living there for 3 years, and it was after that period of time that I'm now rewatching this. And a bit of a comment on that. The name of the runabout was the Yangtze Kiang, and Kiang means river or depending on where you're from, it's either Kiang or Jiang in Chinese. But Yangtze is not the Chinese way of saying the river. The river is so long that different portions of it are named different things depending on where it is. And this particular name came from missionaries that were around the area of Yangzhou, which is just west of Nanjing. And that particular part of the river is called the Yangtze-Jiang by those people only, and they picked that up, and it stayed with the Western culture, and then it found its way into our language. But in Chinese, initially it was called Dajiang, which is Da is the character for large, which we see in Daimon. Probably the original writing was Daimon, because it means large. It's Da in Chinese and Dai in Japanese, and I think they were going for that for big leader for the Ferengi. But then a couple hundred years after that, and until now, it became Changjiang. Chang means long, and so Changjiang, Long River. And I know that the writers were going for a little bit of incorporation of Earth cultures, ancient Earth cultures, when they named the runabout to show that we're one big planet now rather than a series of individual countries. But I thought it would have been a little bit better if they'd gone with Changjiang instead of Yangtze-Kiang, because that would have been more appropriate for what the Chinese. Yeah, that was to me a little bit off. Yeah, we were right there on that one, I know, but I thought I thought Changjiang would have been a better way to name it. So that's my thoughts on this. But it fantastic character development. Loved it, and then new insight from having lived in China. The naming could have been a little better, but maybe. Is
that what we're seeing behind you?
That is the Changjiang, exactly. That is the river. That's the portion of what we call the Yangtze River. This is much further west than what you would find than the area where the Yangtze or Yangzhou is. But I mean, it starts way up in the mountains off to the west, and it comes down and it goes up, and it eventually filters out into the sea just past Shanghai, just north of Shanghai. And that's the Yangtze River, the Changjiang.
Nice.
Is that something that you would have to you'd have to live there to know that, though? I mean, that's not.
No, Wikipedia will give you all this too. But I mean, living there, I had to call the things by their appropriate name when I wasn't speaking in Chinese to them. So I don't speak it fluently, but I know enough. When I wanted to go from this place to that place, I needed to know the localized names rather than saying the names that we would use in English.
Where's the Yankee River?
Right.
Get out of here.
Highway. Yeah, exactly.
No.
Not your best, but it's good.
No, it was this that did it.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, one other comment is, if this group of rebels was at an elite English university, they might have been called the Oxford Comma.
Oh.
Sorry.
Just
for you, Ryan.
Up on everyone.
That was
there
you go. Right there. That was.
So what? So I apologize, Jason, but you have to follow that.
That's hard. That's hard.
You don't have to drop as much knowledge on us if you don't. Nobody knows as much about stuff as but welcome. And have you seen this episode recently? If so, did you notice anything different or have any new thoughts on it that you hadn't noticed before?
Well, I mean, I've seen the episode many times, and I actually did rewatch it again today, and I saw it a few weeks ago. So I was just kind of curious to see from the perspective of it all. And I tend to look at things sort of from a global perspective. And I think, what was mentioned is, if you're watching the early, I guess, episodes of TNG versus, the early episodes of Deep Space. And I've never really contrasted them in that level. I mean, sort of the general wisdom is the first couple of seasons sucked or they weren't as good or whatever it is. But everything is, you look at everything in comparison. And perhaps, I mean, this is not the best episode of Deep Space. I mean, it isn't. It's a good episode, but it's certainly not among the best. Or I don't think anybody would put it among the best. But if you look at what came as the first regular episode of The Next Generation, The Naked Now, which is not a very good episode. I mean, it has moments in it. It has funny moments. It has a lot of things. But overall, it's derivative. I mean, they gave John Z.F. Black the story credits. I don't think he participated in it at all. I mean, they just took the old plot from it. And they had, 1,000 cooks in the kitchen. They had Roddenberry polling, and, they had his lawyer rewriting things. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. So you have this Naked Now followed by the absolutely unwatchable Code of Honor. And then
written by the lady that wrote this episode, Catherine.
Right.
That's right. I mean, the contrast of it all. is really, really interesting. And again, I mean, yeah, her name's on it, but I'd be curious to know what she actually wrote versus what ended up on the screen. It's not, it's not the shot I wrote, it's the one they shot. So it's just a matter of, what ended up there. And, and there's something here that's a hell of a lot better in terms of character development. You jump right in. I mean, in essence, this is really a bottle show. There's really nothing it's pretty much all standing sets. I mean, they had sort of these little things with the inserts on the screen, but mostly it looks like a bottle show, which is kind of, I don't say risky, but it's typically not what you do for the first after the pilot. But it was kind of interesting to see. And the fact that I think they got Rick Colby to do it was really interesting. I mean, he's very, very good. It's a very steady hand. And the way he shows things, there are a lot of things sort of in the foreground, gives us sort of depth and dimension, which is hard to do when you have sort of this 4:3 frame. There's one particular shot, I think it may have been in Act 1, where Sisko and Kira are speaking talking on the promenade, and there are people walking in front of the camera, which is very unusual. You don't often see that.
Mm-hmm.
You often see this sort of this close talking. You have two people sort of their heads together because of the frame.
Mm-hmm.
And once you put something in the foreground, it gives you depth and perception, and together with the story, it adds something that gives it quite a bit more depth. Not just sort of, it gives it visual depth. So I think this was quite a bit different from what you'd usually see. And I forget who shot The Naked Now, who was the director on it. But this is, I mean, honestly, this was done a hell of a lot better. If you look at the shots in Ops, there's a lot of panning, sort of these one shots. There's a lot of panning. So you're observing. And then there's some pickup shots here and there. I mean, you really feel like you're there. It's sort of a visceral feeling to it all. And the fact that you have characters who are formed almost from the very beginning. And I think, if you look at sort of the Star Trek series as a whole, you look at the sort of the series from the 80s and 90s, I guess, DS9 certainly came out as the most formed. If you look at the original series, it came out with a bang right away. The first year, I mean, you really came out, you see all the characters right there. I mean, Spock took a little bit to sort of figure out, but everybody else is there. On the Next Generation, it took quite a while for this to sort of ferment. I mean, people were sort of put off by the Picard character for a while, and there are reasons for that. On Deep Space, everybody comes out sort of right there. They're very well formed. You know who Kira is. You know who Odo is. I think there were little issues with writing Bashir for a little bit. I mean, they couldn't really kind of get his voice for a little while, but they finally got him.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody else is sort of right there, and you have an incredible guest cast. I mean, you have Andy come in, and it's just great. I mean, the shot starts. You're sort of looking at Bashir sitting at a table. There's something in the foreground, and then Andy walks in. I mean, it is a great shot, sort of a little bit from below. I mean, it was marvelously done. So it's just kind of what kind of coming back to what I started with. The first thing that you notice is how much better perhaps it is than its reputation. And that I think, struck me the most. I mean, I never thought this was bad, but I didn't realize how good it was until I really started paying attention to the little things in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you brought up the people walking in the foreground, because Aaron said the same exact thing as far as directing style from Rick Colby. And I was like, oh, yeah, see, he got that too. he noticed that as well. Cool stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
What about you, Jed? Did you notice anything new this time?
Yeah, I did, and this is a little bit of I think Maya may have used the term riff. I'm gonna riff off of Scott. What Scott had mentioned. I was taking this and thinking about what was happening in the world, and at that time it was being written, and I came away with strong, Irish Republican Army vibes, which obviously there's huge parallels to the Bajoran resistance, of course, and colonialism, and you've got perhaps more Sinn Féin before they demilitarized, and so you've got these really hardliners, and so that's what I started to take from it. Thinking about that was the time frame. The peace accords, a Dayton peace accords. I was looking this up. I don't know all this off the top of my head, but I was looking this up. I was like, when was that? And that was a few months later after this, or specifically. But that was happening at that time frame. We forget about that. Especially on this continent. And 20, 30, 40 years later, the troubles and that sort of thing. And so that's kind of what I took from it, especially later in the episode with the anti-colonialism statements and sentiments from Tana. As Kira is evolving, as you'd mentioned earlier, and as we and realizing he's stuck, he can't evolve, and so that I really did take that away, and completely different. My second thing here is the introduction of Garrick, who was not going to be a recurring character, and became this incredible character, largely if not completely due to Andrew Robinson, and is it's my personal favorite character in all of Star Trek. Wow. That is a big thing to say, and so for me to rewatch this today and realize that this is the introduction, and some of the behind the scenes things I was reading up on was important for me, and how, the opening scene for the second episode, what Jason just said, this is the opening scene of the second episode of a series, and it's in a cantina, it's in the Replimat, and it's just, there's flowers right in front of. And I noticed that because I'm a florist, there's flowers right in front of Bashir, and
tickling his nose.
Garrick, yeah.
That was
and
so good.
I'm like, that realism, he is so off foot, and Garrick is just like a cat and a mouse, and you get that instant sense. And this is before the credits, the opening credits there. So the opening scene. So those two things, and thinking that what's past is prologue, past prologue here, and you've got Garrick's past as a spy. You've got even O'Brien wasn't much in this, but even he said something along the lines of, Commander, do you know what the Cardassians do to a prisoner? And that's his past that comes up obviously later on. You've got, of course, Kira and Odo, really, kind of, you're looking at their past and that sort of stuff, but Garrick, who's not intended to be a long-term character, is so full of detail as we know it now. So it's very interesting to have that past, and then his future, the prologue, that sort of stuff. So it was, I really enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed going back to it today, and I'm more than I anticipated. So. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be keeping an eye on all the shrubbery and flowers now as we move forward. Jed's going to like this scene.
Space florals. Space florals. I'm going to have, it's going to be my little one-off in some of the after parties there.
That should be a new trivia game, Space florals.
Xenobiology with
Exactly.
It was a florist too. Garrick was a florist on Romulus, so
right. Good knowledge. Yeah. That's right.
Wow.
All right, Malissa, did you notice anything this time that you hadn't noticed before?
Yes, and I'm gonna say that I noticed Garrick more this time than I did the last time, and he's got a lot going on in here, and and it's wonderful to watch, and I don't know how I missed it before, and maybe it's because I was from the beginning I was so taken with Kira that she was the only one that I saw. But she surprised me again too in this episode, just what she has going on in her face. But Garrick too has some amazing things that he makes me want to know more about him. And I noticed the way he approached Bashir this time, for the first time, than I did before. And Bashir is just this innocent
deer in the headlights.
Deer in headlights.
Yeah.
And Garrick definitely sought him out, and I definitely noticed that this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Cirroc, any final thoughts before we head out?
Final thought. One, I liked when Odo says to the Duras sisters, "I'm the one giving you the choice."
Yes, thank you for bringing that. That was like the best line. Because they said, "And who are you?" He said, "I'm the one giving you the choice." Oh,
yeah.
Love it.
Because I'm waiting for him to say I'm the chief, the head of security, but he didn't. He's like, "I'm giving you the choice. So, you want to stay or do you want to go?" I love the line. And the other thing I was thinking was when Bashir found out that the substance inside the vial was like bellitrium or whatever it was called. I was thinking, isn't he a genius? Like he should know a little bit about it. Like, not a whole lot, but it's just like at least know that it's a bomb making material or something like that. I thought that was a little bit.
See, Cirroc's turning into one of us now.
Yeah, I'm like, isn't he? He's a supercomputer. He's a smart guy. He's supposed to know what the hell that is.
Yeah, but he can't let on yet. They don't know.
Oh, okay. He's playing.
Yes, he's an undercover genius.
Okay. And then the last thing I'll say was, when the Duras sisters were paid their 13 kilograms of gold pressed latinum, I thought that bag looked real light.
That was a very light. I mean, that's just that's a prime example of how much stronger Klingons are. I noticed the same exact thing. I was like, 13 kilograms. That's
like 30 pounds.
Almost 30 pounds. Yeah.
Slinging it around.
Wow.
They were slinging it around. I was like, you might want to check that because I don't think it's all there.
Or
you just got played.
Yeah.
I'm gonna count that.
There's packing peanuts in here.
Got played by Garrick, man. Somebody.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's about it for us. Everybody at home, thanks for joining us. This has been a lot of fun. And Jed, Goldu, Scott, Jason, and Mai, thank you as well for joining us and enriching this deep dive. So cool, all the fun things that we can see upon a second or fifth or 30th viewing. So everybody at home, thanks very much. And until next time, always remember the 7th rule.